Hello once again. This is Sam Pollock, student number 101279608. I'm going to be showing off final assignment for Unity Engine class, and this time it's a Pokemon-y RPG. So you can find it all here on itch.io, and also check out full source on this publicly available GitHub repo. But while you're here watching the video, why don't we take the game for a spin? So here we've got a title screen. You can also check the credits to see a list of external assets used. Also in the game files, I have a text file with detailed sourcing and links to the sources. But so here we go. Got a player character wandering around here with sound effects for the walking. Got these tree and obelisk casting shadows. And then at the edges of the world here, watching this dog last come to a battle. So I poked that cactus and it died. So here, at the edges of the world, we're locked in. Let's get into another battle. First, let's throw a save down here. Okay, the goblin got the first hit. By pointing at abilities, they'll show a tooltip describing what they do. So we can power up. Start battling. Okay, you've seen two of the enemy types. There is a third here. Just triggered on. There we are. And so you'll notice there's different types of abilities. Ones that deal a multiplier based on your strength stat, ones that increase your strength stat, ones that do d6 worth of, in this case 2d6 worth of damage, so it rolls 2d6 to determine the damage. Okay, so we'll exit the game. Oh, let's finish this battle first. Okay, so we can exit the game, and let's take a look at how it works in Unity. And so, many of the features here were built as part of the ongoing assignments. That includes this tile map and some basics about collision and lighting. A lot of the additional work here was focused on this encounter. So if we look in here, this is where you can see that the player has these abilities that are set, and then it generates the ability window dynamically based on the abilities they have. And the enemy has similar abilities. You'll notice in this case the enemy defaults having a bunch of abilities. That's not actually what ends up showing up in the game, because I've used this enemy scriptable object to build the enemies. That's where I set their name, their max health, their strength, their abilities, and their sprite, as well as their deck, which determines their artificial intelligence. So we can see one of those. Encounter scripts enemies. So in the case of the goblin, when you're facing the goblin, he actually has two abilities and a deck, which it runs through this deck and shuffles it. He's got two. He'll use bite twice and grab 3 times. And then for a similar look. Here's the Minotaur with its own AI behavior. Let's see if we can show this by taking a look in the inspector as it's running. So I'm facing a cactus, so you can see his abilities here. Turn that off so it stops complaining about the overworld. So if we look at the enemy's actions, after I use an ability, the enemy will use one and allow it to his discard deck. It'll go that way through the entire deck until it shuffles and then back in, resetting his AI and giving a new order. The next feature I want to show off is some details about how the attack animations work. So in the player, I've got this effect image. Sorry, that's in the enemy. In the player, I have an effect image which has these different animations states. It'll go to these states depending on triggers, and it'll set these triggers with a switch statement in the player encounter, or sorry, in the encounter player. So when the player uses an ability, it starts by doing a little wiggle to give the player some feedback. It starts the coroutine for using an ability, does the relevant damage types according to the parameters set up in the ability's scriptable object and the effects attached to it. That includes raw damage, which is just flat damage value, strength scaling damage, which depends on the strength of the character using it, and that system can easily be extended to include different scaling and different scaling stats. And then roll damage, which of course can combine with strength scaling to make for basically the entirety of Dungeons & Dragons ability systems. Then buffs and debuffs, which in this case just apply to strength. And then depending on which ability uses, we set different sound effects and we play different animations. The enemy uses that same kind of stuff because they can use the same abilities. Okay, and then that about covers the main things that I've added since the use of the labs. Oh, and then as a little bonus, I added these damage texts to give some additional player feedback so they could see how the battle was going. And I guess finally, adding the functionality for the enemy to, on its death, grant the player its ability was pretty easy in this case, considering how they employ these abilities identically. So it just finds the player and adds to the player's list of abilities the first ability that the enemy has, which is their signature ability. Okay, so that's the bulk of it. I hope you enjoy giving it a try yourself. Okay, thanks. This was Sam Pollock.